Good evening, Fernwood. My name is Neil, and thank you for joining me through my sojourn through the surprisingly subversive 70s soap opera Mary Hartman, Mary Hartman. I was somewhat traumatized by last episode, so I'm going to do a brief recap and we'll see if we can unpack it, and we'll just start the episode right away. Charlie and Loretta were surprised that Loretta has some sensation in her toe. That was super overjoyous for them. Tom asked May to stay in town because Mary is trying to get her fixed up with her ex-husband. And the big disgusting event for me last episode was the drowning death of Coach Fetters after he took in a lot of whiskey and sleeping pills and he drowned in a bowl of Mary's chicken soup. I tried to process this a little bit by kind of Googling around the event, and there's not a lot that's on there about why this scene. I do know that this was listed in TV Guide's top 100 scenes of all time at number 97, and it was certainly impactful to me. I'm not sure yet what this scene was trying to get across, either in terms of story points for the show or in terms of social messaging that they were trying to get across. Maybe they were trying to highlight the risks of mixing medicines and alcohols. Maybe that was a topic of discussion at the time. A lot of different topics get brought up in this show, and sometimes they're just a flash. And this one, it was it was a lot for me to watch. And that's from my 21st century point of view. If you have thoughts on that scene, go ahead and drop them in the comments, because, I don't hear from anybody about this stuff. I didn't really see any discussion from the creators on this, although I'm trying not to spoil myself on the rest of the series. I figure that we're going to see the effect that this has on Mary, because up until that scene, Mary was doing all right. She was feeling really happy with herself. I guess we'll see that shift. I expect so. This is the March 4th, 1976 episode of Mary Hartman, Mary Hartman. Play.
Now turning to local news, a tragic story at the top of the page. Fernwood High School athletic coach Leroy Fetters is dead tonight at the age of 47, the victim of a bizarre household accident. He's reported to have drowned. That's right, drowned in a bowl of chicken soup. Fortunately, all traces of chicken bones had been removed, so no cuts or contusions resulted. Fetters was pronounced dead on arrival at Fernwood Receiving. Surviving Coach Fetters are his wife Blanche and one daughter, a runaway, who couldn't be reached for comment. In other sports tonight, the Fernwood High Huguenots met the Montrose Mean Machine and...
What you trying to do?
They're the Huguenots.
Tom's upset, Paul.
Well, I'm not upset exactly.
Oh, it's only natural. After all, you were on his basketball team in high school. I can remember Mary watching you play. How is she taking it, Tom?
Not so good. She's feeling guilty because it was her chicken soup.
Like they said in the news, bizarre accidents in the home are a major health hazard. I read about a man who died of heat prostration from falling asleep on a couch covered with aluminum foil. Of course, that is not as bizarre as drowning in a bowl of soup. Oh, poor Blanche. Oh, where you going, Tom?
Well, I told Mary I'd try to round up some of the guys from the coach's old teams, to try to help Blanche through her hour in the evening.
Oh, that is so sweet.
Yeah, now don't get too depressed now, Mom, okay?
I'll try, Tom. I think I'll call George and tell him what happened.
All about someone who can depress you in 5 minutes.
I'll see you later, Grandpa.
Bye, Tom. He isn't there? Well, do you know where you can reach him? He didn't leave a message? Well, this is his wife. Mm-hmm. Well, when he returns, would you please tell him I called and have him call me back? Please. Thank you.
He probably jumped into cakes with naked girls.
That's out of cakes, Paul. Besides, George has too much bursitis in his knees to do any jumping anywhere. Poor Mary. She must feel so terribly guilty. Oh, Lord, Lordy, the complications we have in the home these days. It's a wonder everybody just doesn't eat out.
I just can't help it.
It's not your fault, Mary.
Yes, it is. I made it for him. I brought it to him. I gave it to him. I set it down in front of him. And I told him it would be the best thing in the world for him.
Doesn't mean you killed him.
But my soup killed him. And I made the soup. I'm an accomplice in the chicken soup murder case.
That's not true, Mary.
Of course it is.
I picked out those soup greens. I picked the plumpest chicken.
I was never been responsible for death before.
Well, you're not responsible for Leroy's. I don't blame you.
You don't?
He was drinking. And he was taking those pills, and I warned him. He was just too drunk to keep his head up.
I don't mean to embarrass you. Ask you an embarrassing question, but how come you haven't cried yet?
You know that's true.
What is it, the shock?
No.
You haven't realized?
Oh, no. I've realized it. Like last night, I said, Blanche Fetters, widow. It's like Mrs. Joe Dokes. Like if you're planning to get married and you try and imagine what it would look like on a napkin.
You're thinking of putting Mrs. Blanche Fetters' widow on a napkin?
No.
Oh, Blanche, I just hope that you don't break down completely.
No chance. No. Last night, when I was all by myself, I said, I'm going to wait for it to hit me. Leroy is dead. And then I realized it did hit me. It had hit me. Oh, I'm sorry he's gone. Don't misunderstand.
Oh, no, I don't misunderstand. I mean, I couldn't. You love him.
Well, not exactly. We sort of tolerated each other, you see. Oh, he'd say he loved me on anniversaries and things like that, but we never got goose pimples about it. I guess I'll miss him.
Oh, you will. Definitely, you will.
But I miss the Girl Scouts, too.
Blanche, it's not the same.
He wasn't a warm man. I used to be warm, a lot warmer than I am now. Well, like last night, when I went into our room for the first time since he...
And the soup.
Yeah.
Chicken.
Right. And I was just sitting there. All by myself, alone in the dark. And I was waiting for the waterworks to begin. That's what Leroy always used to call them when we were newlyweds, and I'd burnt the roast or something. Well, they didn't. I mean, I found myself sitting there and noticing that the drapes were frayed, and that there was clutter all over the dresser top. And that's the only thing I had in my head. I felt nothing.
I think that's normal. You know, when my grandmother died, I was a little girl. And I remember at her funeral, we were at graveside. And I remember I looked up because I was sure that I was going to see her soul just flying through the sky. And all I saw was a cloud. And the cloud looked like a kangaroo. I'd never even seen a kangaroo. And suddenly I started thinking about Australian birds, kiwis, and stuff, and all my relatives were just around me sobbing. I felt so guilty. I mean, there they were at a funeral, and it was like I was at the zoo.
Well, you cried later.
Well, when I got home and sat in her rocking chair.
Well, you see, I won't.
You will.
No. Leroy wouldn't have wanted that. I think he wouldn't have wanted that. Well, there you have it. After 19 years of marriage, I still don't know. I didn't know him. And he certainly didn't know me. And that's the only interest we ever had in each other. If you think about it, that's really too bad.
It's so sad.
But not necessarily unusual. I'll get it.
Hello. I'm Harold Perkins of the Eternal Mrs. Fetters, my deepest condolences.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm not Mrs. Fetters. I'm Mrs. Hartman. This is Mrs. Fetters.
Oh, sorry. My deepest condolences. It's just that I thought that...
I was the widow. No, I'm just the woman who killed him.
Oh, I see. Mrs. Fetters, I want you to know how many messages of sympathy we've received on behalf of the coach. It's a great tribute to the man.
He was a lovely man.
And in the spirit of all those tributes, I know you'll want the finest for your late husband.
Just a minute now. What little money I have coming to me is going to be necessary for me to live. So don't try to butter me up. And don't sell me anything.
Fair.
She's in shock, you know. I'm sure that she'll go as deeply into debt as anyone else in bereavement. Oh, and by the way, this was all my fault. No, really. I know you don't believe me, but I killed her husband. Blanche!
Mrs. Fetters, I assure you.
I just want the simplest, most economical funeral that you have.
Blanche, let me pay for it.
You don't mean that. She doesn't mean that.
No, I'm sure she doesn't. Blanche, I'll pay for it.
Mrs. Fetters, an event like this comes along once in a lifetime. In later years, you'll be happy.
Yes, I know, with the fact that I spend as little as possible. All right. Let's discuss coffins.
Caskets. I was going to suggest imperial rest,
Oh, well, that's always nice. I'm totally responsible for this.
which is brass and African ebony.
Well, do you have something in a pine or like a sturdy synthetic? Something like that?
Lined or unlined?
Lina. She wants lined.
That would be model 22J, basically aluminum, $219.
That sounds good. I didn't mean to do it.
Is there anything less expensive?
No.
Blanche, I'm paying for it.
I'll take it.
I killed him.
Slumber room facilities. Flowers, musical atmosphere, any number of ushers you may desire, a genuine leather guest book.
No slumber room. Just close the coffin.
Blanche, the least he can do is give his parents a chance to look at him. I'm paying for it.
We also have food and drink available.
Coffee and punch. No food.
No soup.
The funeral cortege?
Look, no extra cars. Just a hearse for the coffin.
Can the coffin fit 2 people?
Casket.
And no Cadillac with frills.
You want the Dodge. It's a 73.
Fine.
Blanche, this is a one-time event. I mean, really, a 73 Dodge? I'll go halves with you on a caddy.
Look, Mary, I am not unprepared here. Last night when I was cleaning off the top of my dresser, I read up on funerals and how widows especially are soaked.
Blanche, I'll be the widow. I'll get soaked.
Mrs. Fetters, please.
I am worried about the day after the funeral. Now that is a special event for someone who's alive. Come on, Mary.
Listen, put him in a Cadillac hearse. And if you want music, if you want hors d'oeuvres, anything like that that you want, I'll pay for it, okay? He said, I am totally responsible for the death of the remains. The deceased fell into a bowl of my chicken soup. I mean, the soup wasn't the greatest. You know, I'm not the greatest cook. But usually people just don't say anything.
I'm gonna miss you so much. We still have time left.
Don't mind me, children. Just go right ahead with what you're doing. Oh, Blanche. Blanche is holding up like a real trooper. I don't know how she does it. I mean, if anything happened to your father, I would be a wreck. An absolute wreck. Just like Mary. She's taken it so hard. Worse than Blanche, almost. Do you know what she said to me? She said that she felt like a murder. She said maybe not a premeditated murder, but it most certainly felt like manslaughter since she had provided the murder weapon. Kathy?
Oh, yes, Ma.
Won't Steve, Mrs. Blaine?
No, we're watching the time.
I don't see how you can with your eyes closed.
Steve, we've been all through this. I can't go. Why, you know why.
I don't know.
Mom, he's going to be with all those publishing people, and he's going to be interviewed at 21, and they're going to put his pictures in Time magazine, and I would just be in the way, and I have nothing to wear, and I have nothing to say. I would feel dumb and out of place.
Oh, Kathy, why, you have perfectly lovely clothes. And she has a lovely personality, doesn't she, Steve?
I'm not going, and that's final. You better make tracks, or you're going to miss your plane. Oh, and you belong to me forever. Well, he said that we're going to be married as soon as he gets home.
Oh, that is so sweet. I'm so happy for you both.
Come on, you better go. Oh, Steve, I love you. Goodbye. Have a nice flight. Bye. Oh, Mom, he wrote me a poem. I want to wake up in your arms and see again the topless towers of Ilium. I'll tarry not in alien rooms, but hurry back to lie again with you.
It doesn't rhyme, but it's very beautiful.
Oh, Mom, he's going to come back to me no matter who he meets in New York. He's going to come back to me.
Why, of course he's going to come back to you. Which reminds me, I haven't been able to reach your father. Mr. George Shumway's room, please.
Hello?
Hello, Daddy. It's me, Martha.
Oh, yeah, I recognize the voice.
I have some sad news for you, Daddy. What is that noise? Are you having a party in your room?
Well, what do you mean sad news, Martha? Something happened to Kathy? What happened?
George, it's Leroy Favors. He passed away.
I'm fooling.
It was a terrible, terrible tragedy. You see, he had this bad cold, and he couldn't sleep at night, and he took all these sleeping pills, and he drowned in a bowl of soup.
Uh-huh. That's terrible, terrible. Anything else?
Well, isn't that enough? George, are you having a party in your room?
No, Martha. That's just the radio.
Well, I just called you to tell you about Leroy and to find out how you are.
I'm fine, Martha, and I'll see you in a couple of days, okay?
All right. Now, take care of yourself, you hear?
Yeah, I will. And give my love to Mary and Kathy, and we better get off now. It's long distance, so goodbye.
Who are you dressing up for, George?
Mr. Shumway.
Oh, boy. Mrs. Shumway, that's me.
My name is Sherry.
Well, yeah, well, oh, sure. Come on in.
What is that? What? That's going to be explained, I'm sure, but he definitely, George, gonna have some splaining to do. There's another storyline. You know, this episode, I feel like there's a lot to chew on because this is the aftermath of such a momentous death in this show. And it's, not like Leroy was a huge character. He kind of was a background character, but for me it was the reaction. So Mary, of course, is taking the blame for his death, but for me, the most impactful part of the reactions is watching Blanche, and Blanche not connecting to assumed feelings of grief. And, not that a person shouldn't grieve, but I feel like there's pressure sometimes put on people to act like they are grieving. I also get Blanche's point of view on the money that gets laid into burying someone. It's a lot of money. And when people are at their most vulnerable, there are companies that are poised to take advantage of the depth of the emotion that people are going through at that point. I think there's a lot that can be said about grief. I'm glad that the Fetter's daughter, got mentioned again, although I don't know if we'll see her ever. So I guess we will see. With regard to Mary and Blanche, maybe that was Blanche's big moment in the show. We still have, another almost 300 episodes to watch, so maybe there's more. Anyway, that was the March 4th, 1976 episode of Mary Hartman, Mary Hartman. Thank you for coming along, and we will see you tomorrow night in Fernwood.